America. I was going to say I've done canvassing in Newhall before, but of course I've done canvassing in every part of this area. So I love that you guys are out here. I know other people have paid canvassers or they don't even bother with volunteers, but you guys are making a huge difference. And in fact, that's what I want to talk about today. So we have a challenge in this district, which is, we have a challenge throughout the country, which is when you tell folks, hey, we're not going to end the corruption in the system without fighting a little bit, they get uncomfortable. And you guys might have seen the LA Times didn't endorse me, and they had this hilarious non-endorsement, okay, for those who didn't see it. They said, Cenk is right about the corrupting influence of money in politics, and he's also right about other issues. But we don't like his pugnacious attitude. We'd rather have civility in Congress. Okay?
No.
Now, think about that. That's saying, yeah, he's right about the issues, and you can't actually solve any of those issues without fighting, but we would just prefer civility. We prefer politeness to actually getting change for the American people. Because there is no theory of change where you're civil and you get big change, right? If Martin Luther King, instead of taking to the streets and doing boycotts and challenging the police and calling them racist, which he did over and over again, that history gets whitewashed. And even in his I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King referred to the vicious racists down in Alabama and Mississippi. And it's very rude to call people vicious racists, right? If he hadn't done that stuff, and he had just politely asked Lyndon Johnson, hey, can you guys just give us the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act? That's what the LA Times would have preferred, and honestly, some voters, they would have preferred that, okay? They didn't like, oh, it's so uncomfortable. I don't like watching them get their heads smashed in Selma, Alabama. It's icky, right? But we wouldn't have gotten the Civil Rights Act. We wouldn't have gotten the Voting Rights Act. You don't get those things unless you fight. So, here, I'll give you one analogy today. So, in Malcolm and Gladwell's really powerful story about how South Korean airlines used to crash more often than other airlines. And they were so surprised by that. So they studied the engines of the planes. They were perfectly fine. They studied everything else about the planes. They were perfectly fine. And so then the last thing they did was they studied the black boxes of the crashes, and they found the answer. It turns out, because of cultural issues, the co-pilot was too polite to tell the pilot they were about to run into a mountain. Literally, you hear the co-pilot in every one of the crashes trying to really politely tell the pilot we're all about to die. But he does it too politely. Now, is it polite to not tell the pilot? The pilot's dead. He's dead now because the co-pilot was too polite. The co-pilot is dead, the pilot is dead, everyone on the plane is dead because they were too polite. But the LA Times would say, bravo! We like politeness in the cockpit. We like civility in the cockpit. But then you've got no change and we run into the mountain. So right now, what mountains are we running into? 45,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. None of them are congressmen. None of them are national media reporters. None of them are in the club. But they die anyway. But hey, you wouldn't want to be impolite to Dianne Feinstein. We'd rather let 45,000 people a year die, and that's such an uncomfortable fact, but it's still a fact, rather than be impolite to fellow beloved Democrats, let alone Republicans. It's 70 degrees this week in Antarctica. 70 degrees. The average temperature normally at this time of year is 39 degrees. It is 30 degrees warmer than what it used to be. 30 degrees. At one point this week, Death Valley was colder than Antarctica. Death Valley. Guys, the whole planet's on fire. And so when people die in the fires and they die in the floods, we're worried about being polite or impolite to people in Washington. It's insanity. And it was a cultural problem for South Korea and South Korean airlines. and it's a cultural problem for America, for Washington, and for the 25th district. So I love that you're out here, and we're going to do it in as gracious and wonderful a way as we can. But that's why I say to everybody, we're on a rescue mission. We've got to rescue those people, and from time to time, it requires me and you and others saying, "I love you, brother, but there's a mountain. Go, lift up, go up, go up, go up." Later, yell at me for being rude, but lift the goddamn plane up because we're all gonna die. Okay? Lift the plane up. Lift the plane up. We gotta tell people. If we don't tell people after the election, we can't say, "Oh, well, that's a shame." We've got to tell them, and that's why you're out here, and that's why I love you. Okay? And for those of you out there, please come out here. Cenk2020.com/team. Yeah, we're in front of a Carl's Jr. by the side of the road.
Show the squad, show the squad.
Show folks a little bit. Okay, and we got some fun shirts. We got some Oppo research folks back there. Can you show the Cenk2020 shirt? Okay, I love it. Okay, Cenk2020.com/team and Cenk2020.com/go, because every dollar is a potential voter. So let's go get this thing done. Let's be slightly impolite to Washington, but actually go save people's lives.
But let's bring people together,
Thank you
though.
for doing it.
Well, let's bring all of us together, though. The voters, they're with us.
Bring
They're
the
with
voters
us. Yeah, the
together.
voters.
Bring the voters
We're all in
together.
love. We all love each other.
The thing we have to be polite to, and the thing that we have to care about, and the thing that we have to be kind to, are the voters.
Yes.
The voters.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.